DFA fam, what is up? We are back. This is our first live in a little while, with the fantasy season officially going. I mean, fantasy drafts are going to start kicking off here very soon. Training camp is in full swing. Preseason a week, really the big preseason first week is this week. Actually,
Right
tonight
now.
there's some preseason action going on, and so and really we're it's less than a month away from the kickoff. I think it's 3 weeks from Thursday. I think it is, or something like that, 4 weeks. Oh, 4 weeks officially from the start of the season. So I decided to kick up the lives and get these going again for everybody. So if you do have any questions, as always, just put them in the chat. We will answer. We'll answer them. But we wanted to kind of take a second and look at all of the training camp stuff, everything that's going on. We've seen a lot of stuff. So who are some risers, who are some fallers through some stuff that has happened through training camp. We still have some players that are still unsigned, like Leonard Fournette and Dalvin Cook are still unsigned, and I guess Kareem Hunt. We thought he was going to sign. Looked like he was going to go to the Saints, and then he backed out because the Colts called him and hey, we're going to offer you more money, but somehow they didn't offer him enough money. I don't know what happened there. A lot of interesting stuff still to shake out to kind of figure everything out.
Yeah, man, but it's here. It feels more official now with the off season starting. Obviously, we have a couple games going tonight. We already had the Hall of Fame game, and then the live. I feel like this is our home. We have some of the usuals rocking with us in the chat. While Lito just coming through with the super chat. Yes, sir. Got AP, got Pena hanging with us. JJ Walsh in the house as well. So yes, any questions you have, drop them in there. We'll start going through some of the news and notes right now. I think what we should start off with is because it's still semi dynasty season, right? Because we haven't really gotten the full swing of redraft yet. Let's start off with some of the rookie hype, right? Some of the rookies who have been getting a bunch of buzz throughout the past couple of weeks with training camp. I'm just going to throw out some names and we can kind of talk about whoever, but the rookies that I have seen getting the most consistent hype, on a day-to-day basis over the past couple of weeks have been Jordan Addison, wide receiver for the Vikings, Sam Laporta, the tight end for the Lions, CJ Stroud, the quarterback who's already been named QB1 for the Texans, Luke Musgrave for the Packers, Zay Flowers, Jalen Hyatt. Seems like Anthony Richardson is starting to get more consistent buzz. He's starting to creep up as well. Devon Achane also every now and then, but not as consistent as those other guys. Does anyone there stand out? I guess for me, the guy who stands out the most has been Sam Laporta. He was one of my favorite tight ends coming into this. He already seems like he is cemented in as the tight end one. We've heard good things about him as a blocker. It seems like from all the reports, he's basically been the number 2 in line for targets behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. So if you skip going early tight ends, because it's like early tight end, early quarterback is like the thing to do this year. But if you skip out on early tight end, would you be comfortable targeting somebody like Laporta and as your late round dart throw, given the fact that a lot of the times we hear that tight ends take so long to develop, we shouldn't be relying on rookie tight ends. We obviously have the historical data to back that up as well. But given all the hype with Laporta, is he someone you'd feel comfortable with as your tight end one if you're going late tight end?
I mean, I don't think you really have to do that. I mean, because I think that he's not really somebody that's really being drafted all that high right now in terms of redrafts. So I think there's a lot of other late round tight ends. I mean, if you look at Sam Laporta, he's tight end 19, 167th overall. I mean, that's almost free at this point. And I think there's definitely a scenario where I think he can vastly exceed that, right? Because if you look at the Lions offense right now, it is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that's kind of, then you have like Josh Reynolds and, Jameson Williams is going to be back until at least week 7. I mean, so there's a lot of different there's not a lot of options here in this passing game. Obviously, you have Jahmyr Gibbs and the running backs, but so I definitely think there's a path, right? And we've seen some other tight ends recently start to really come on. You saw like Greg Dulcich last year, had kind of play really well in spurts last year. You had Kyle Pitts, his rookie season. So some of the narrative I think is starting to change with tight ends, where it's not really the same as it used to be, where it was like, oh no, completely avoid rookie tight ends. But I also don't think in the range he's going in, I don't really. I think there's other options. I think that you could look at, right? I think a guy that's going right around him, like Greg Dulcich isn't going far away. Juwan Johnson, Gerald Everett are all going kind of in that range. If you're really going to wait, I don't mind taking a shot on him because I think the upside is certainly there. And this is a Lions offense that is top 10 in pass rate, top 10 in pace. the last couple of seasons, so they're definitely going to be throwing the ball at a high rate. And I don't think that defense is going to be good. It's a really bad division for the most part. And so I do think that, if you want to target Sam Laporta, you can, but I don't think it's absolutely something that it's like a must, right? Like I think that there's just other options here. I think the more interesting name really for me is Dalton Kincaid, because he's almost going as a top 12 tight end. And to me, that's like, no, I'm out on that, because like I get the excitement with Dalton Kincaid because of the offense he's in with the Bills and, maybe how they're going to utilize him. But Dalton Knox is still there, right? And so, or Dawson, excuse me, Dalton Knox. Dawson Knox is still there. And they paid him a lot of money. Like, he's not going anywhere, right? Like, I think there's definitely a scenario where they use him in the slot and they use him, as kind of like that big move tight end and stuff like that. But like, he's still going to be splitting times with Dawson Knox. And so, I can't take him there. Like, there's other tight ends that I just want over Dalton Kincaid, right? Like, I think you can make an argument for Dalton Schultz or Cole Kmet or Tyler Higbee, like Greg Dulcich. All these tight ends are going right around him, and I think just have a more clearer path to targets.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's a good point to bring up. Somebody else that we need to talk about in terms of a hype train, and he is someone. Whenever we did our first look at rankings, whatever that was, back in like February or March, maybe, whenever we did like our way too early rankings, I threw this wide receiver up thinking it was going to be like a little bit of a hot take. I'd probably bring him back down a little bit after, rookies and free agency and all that. It is not a hot take anymore. The Calvin Ridley hype train is officially off the rails. He is someone that I think, Kev, you have now moved up in your rankings. We'll have a new set of rankings coming out next week for everybody as we prepare for full-on draft season. But Calvin Ridley is now, let me see, should have had to pull this up. He is wide receiver 17 according to Fantasy Pros consensus ADP, and that is pick 40. So what we're talking mid fourth. I think there's a chance that he moves up even further than that. How just accidentally bumped my chair. How high would be too high for you? Like, when would you be out on Calvin Ridley? Because like I said, I think his ADP is going to continue to climb.
Like, I think there's a lot of intrigue with Calvin Ridley, but we still have to bake in the fact that even though that we know that like the last time he was healthy, he was one of the best wide receivers in the league, right? But we also have to take consideration he has missed a lot of time, right? Like, that is a thing. Now, it wasn't all with injury and everything else. It was obviously the suspension, but it's really going to come down to where he goes, right? Because right now he is currently going in PPR formats between DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Terry McLaurin. Like, there's a lot of really quality wide receivers that are in that range that you could make an argument for or against. I do like Calvin Ridley. I think he still has something left in the tank. I don't think that he is going to be cooked. And I think wide receiver is probably one of the more easier positions to be able to come back onto the field and be ready to go. Now, you could point to like a Josh Gordon, right, who just kind of seemed to fade out once like he was able to finally come back. But this was a different situation. Josh Gordon was out for a much longer time than what Calvin Ridley is going to be on this. But I don't mind taking him at cost. Like, I definitely want him over Deebo Samuel. I think I could make an argument that I would rather have him over DK Metcalf. I would rather have Amari Cooper, and I would probably rather have Calvin Ridley over Keenan Allen. But I know you would probably be the opposite of that, maybe, and you would rather have Keenan Allen and over Calvin Ridley. But I think it would be close between those two. We have to remember that there is more options in this offense, right? Christian Kirk is still there. Zay Jones, who played really well, is still there. Evan Ingram. So there's still a lot of options here in this offense. This isn't some situation where I feel like he's going to walk into, 150 targets. Like, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it could be much more like 120, 130 targets. And I think that there's some more intriguing options around him, but I do think that there's some guys that let me put it this way, I don't mind his ADP. I think it's fine at wide receiver 17, but if it were to creep up into like the T. Higgins, Chris Olave, Devonta Smith range, we're out. Like, then I'm taking those guys all day. The certainty with those guys they're going to bring is way higher than what I think Calvin Ridley does.
Yeah, I'm glad you started playing the name game there, because that's exactly where I was going to go next. I'm with you. I definitely want him over Deebo. That's not even a question to me. I'd rather have him over DK as well. Just with adding Jackson Smith and Jigba, like, are we really going to be trusting Geno Smith isn't just going to turn into a pumpkin in year two? Like, if Geno Smith were able to repeat even like 80% of what he did last year, like that would be absolutely wild given the start of his career. You know what I mean? So I'm with you there. Olave is that's an interesting one to me. I'm sure you're on the Olave train there as far as that one goes. But yeah, man, the Calvin Ridley hype is absolutely wild. I'm here for it though. Like I said, I remember whenever we did our first rankings for the beginning of the year, I think I put him like in this area, maybe like even a little bit higher, or like maybe like wide receiver, like 14 or so. And it felt very like hot takey, and not the case anymore. Let's keep on the wide receiver. Someone I just wanted to throw in here for another like ADP discussion. Jalen Waddle is said to be having his best camp of any Dolphin, coming from his quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. So the wide receiver has been dialed in since day one. Would you rather have Waddle at his price or Tyreek at his price? Tyreek is going around like the middle of the first right now, depending on where you're drafting, anywhere from like 5 to 8, 5 to 9. Whereas Waddle is sliding to like the end of the second, beginning of the third. He's around that 2-3 turn there. Would you rather have Hill at his cost or Waddle at his cost?
I would rather have Tyreek at his cost, because I think that the targets, like the one thing that you have to be somewhat concerned with Jalen Waddle, like he lived off efficiency last year. Like he only had 116 targets, but he's turned that into 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. He was 12 in fantasy points per game last season, and so I mean, he was super efficient after the catch. I think helped him out tremendously. He was top 10 in yards after the catch, because I mean he still was 33rd in average at the target, and he was 40th in air yard market share of air yards. Right, so like he wasn't somebody that just lived all off of deep ball, but he certainly has that in his game. But I would rather have Tyreek Hill. I think so. For me, when it comes to the first round wide receivers, like I want one of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Cup, and then if you drafted the back half, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb. Like those are the guys that I want. And I really want to come away in the first round with a wide receiver. Like I don't mind taking Christian McCaffrey or Austin Eckler or Bijan. Like I don't mind that at all if that's what somebody wants to do. But I think there's this delusion that the wide receiver is really deep, and I would argue against it, especially with how much they're being pushed up. It's not as dramatic as like best ball, but it's still happening. And there's a cliff for wide receivers where it starts to get pretty dicey in how you feel about these guys, right? So I want one of these elite wide receivers that I can draft early. And then I think coming back in the second round, grabbing a running back, and then coming back in the third, where you're still going to have, even in the third round, you're going to have options there in the third round of players you can take, like Chris Olave, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen. Like all of those guys are still sitting there in the third, fourth round, where now you got your elite wide receiver, you got a elite running back, and then from there you can make a decision. Do you want to go another wide receiver? We can also go in the direction of quarterback or tight end are still sitting there, and we haven't even got to the quarterback yet, because quarterback ADP is wilding right now with some of the stuff. Like I was shocked to see that Patrick Mahomes on ESPN is going in the first round of drafts. Like get all the way out of here with that. Like that is ridiculous with that. But so for me, I would rather have Tyreek Hill. I just think that the ceiling is so much higher with him. We know the kind of amount of targets he's going to see. The only caveat is always going to be is can Tua stay healthy? But I'm not going to play that game with him. That is he not, or is he not? I think you just have to play that as that he's going to play all 17 games, and if he is, it's still Tyreek Hill.
I want to jump to some of the questions here in the chat. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, training camp related, dynasty, keeper, whatever it is, go ahead and drop them in here. But since you were talking about some of those first round running backs and wanting a receiver over them, our guy JJ wants to know McCaffrey or Eckler. Who do you want this year?
It's still McCaffrey for me. I love this offense. I don't think that the opportunity is going to go away for Austin Eckler, but I just think Christian McCaffrey, I think, is just a little bit safer of an option. You have Austin Eckler now, who's getting up there. He's 28 years old, but I will be interested to see how much if changes we're going to see with Kellen Moore. I don't think the pace is going to change, the passing frequency is going to change, but it's going to hurt somebody with the addition of Quentin Johnston. Like, I don't know if we're going to see as many checkdowns. I don't know if that Austin Eckler is going to see the same type of ridiculous target share, because we have to remember the last couple of years. I mean, this offense has been banged up, right? You've had Mike Williams, who's missed a lot of time. You've had either or Keenan Allen, vice versa, miss a lot of time. So they've had to rely on Austin Eckler with a lot of these targets. Like, if these guys stay healthy this year, or even if one of them doesn't, like, now you have that backwind of Quentin Johnston, who now can step into that role where maybe there's not enough targets to go around for Austin Eckler. And if he doesn't, because he's not a guy who's going to be getting 20 carries a game, like, we just know that his value comes a lot off of how much he is utilized in the passing game. And if that's going to go away, or at least limited, I don't think it's going to be something where it's like he's all of a sudden like Nick Chubb and he's seeing 40 targets. Like, that's not going to happen. But I mean, the last couple of seasons, I mean, last year he had 107 receptions. He had 70 receptions the year before that. And that's where a lot of his production came from, because he hasn't rushed for 1,000 yards. Like, that's never happened his entire career. He's never rushed for 1,000 yards. And so where his allure comes from is his pass catching work. And if that drops, and let's say he is more of a 60, 70 reception guy, I think that could hurt if the touchdowns aren't going to follow him. So so for me, Christian McCaffrey is just much more clear.
I think if you would have asked me this at the beginning of August, I might have leaned Eckler, just because if you look at the splits with McCaffrey when Elijah was healthy, it was a very stark difference between the two. But now you have Elijah already getting banged up. So, like, I'm with you. I lean McCaffrey, and especially because of what you said, the touchdowns. The dude has scored, like 38, 40 touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. So if that falls off at all, like that is going to be like, he could still have a fantastic year, have 12 touchdowns, and like now you're missing out on that. So our guy AP here coming through the Toy Story. Avi, love seeing that. Went wide receiver heavy this year. Have Jefferson, Waddle, who we were just talking about, Devonta Smith, Judy, Godwin, Burks. RBs are Sanders, Najee, and Dobbins. Thoughts? I like this team a lot.
Your obvious strength is wide receiver. I mean, you killed it with Justin Jefferson, Waddle, Devonta Smith. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, and then you have Chris Godwin and Burks that are just chilling on the bench that you could utilize to like upgrade this roster if you needed to. Your running backs are still fine with Miles Sanders, Najee, and J.K. Dobbins. Like, there's a lot. J.K. Dobbins scares the hell out of me. I mean, he is once again coming in this year injured, and it's just like
disgruntled.
Like, I just don't know. Like, and how can you be disgruntled if you're J.K. Dobbins? Like, you've done nothing in the NFL. Like, it's like I just deserve this, whatever. Like you've done nothing, bro. Like, have a healthy season, because he does feel like Dalvin Cook, right? Like, if you remember early Dalvin Cook, where Dalvin Cook is like you saw the flashes. He would flash at times, but then he kept getting hurt, and then he finally was able to put it all together. Like, that's what this feels like, and like you need to put these things together before you can like say that you deserve a contract or something like that. But so overall, I think this is a really, really good team. I think you knocked this one out of the park.
Ashton wants to know Kupp, CMC, or Eckler full PPR.
I'm gonna go Kupp.
I'm gonna go Kupp as well. I mean, you obviously have injury concerns with both Kupp and CMC, and I just said I would take CMC over Eckler, so I can't go and say I'll take Eckler out of these three. So I lean Kupp as well, but that's a tough decision there. Jacob Onder, what's the panic level on Jacobs not playing week 1 on a scale of 1 to 10?
9. I mean, it's probably a little high, 8 or 9. I would say probably 6 or 7. Like, I think this is much more real than all the others that we thought maybe could be a problem, right? Because he doesn't have to play against it this year. But the thing is, there's no leverage for these guys. Like, they have nothing, right? One, it's not like the Raiders have like Super Bowl aspirations this year, right? Like, the Raiders, we pretty much kind of feel like they're not going to be good anyways. And so, like, if I'm the Raiders, like, I think there's a shot that they just there is a shot they rescind the franchise tag off of him and just take it off of him. Not a bad idea, but no other team's going to sign him to some big contract either. Like it's not going to happen. Like, That's the thing that like these guys need to like with Jonathan Taylor. Like I'm sitting out, I'm getting a new contract, bro. You're not getting a contract. Like it's not like not what you expect it to be. Like I hate it. Like Saquon, same thing. Like he thought he was going to get this huge contract offer. It's not going to happen. Like these teams have gotten so smart with this, and like there's a whole debate you can have of like how much should running backs, how much do they matter? Because I think the argument that they don't matter at all is like that's not real. But at the same time, like we've just seen enough of these teams over time, like prove it, right? Like look at the Chiefs last year, right? Like they had Isaiah Pacheco as their starting running back, right? Like you just don't need these superstar running backs anymore, and their value is not the same as it used to be, right? Like the '90s was their heyday, early 2000s. It was a great time to be a running back, paid a lot of money. It doesn't anymore. Like if you look at the free agent running backs for next year, it's wild. It's Jonathan Taylor. It's potentially Jonathan Taylor, but Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler. Like it is a who's who of running backs that are going to be free agents next year, and none of these guys are going to get the contract they think. Like, and we've seen like Todd Gurley get paid, not work out. Ezekiel Elliott got paid, didn't work out. Dalvin Cook got paid, did it really matter? No. Like it's a shame, and like they need to figure something out to like bridge this gap because they shouldn't be, I think, as labeled as like we're not going to pay these guys ever, because what you're going to end up having is people just not going to want to play running back anymore. But at the same time, like I don't think teams should be going out and giving running backs a $15-16 million a year deal. Like that shouldn't happen either. Like if I was a fan of whatever team you are, like I would be pissed if my team gave out some huge contract to a running back. Unless I think you have to be like Christian McCaffrey level, like ability to be able to catch passes out of the backfield. Like you have to be an elite pass catcher to be able to get that kind of money. But if you're just like a grinder or something like that, I'm sorry, you don't deserve that. You don't be in that discussion at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, or just an absolute freak like Derrick Henry and just being able to push for 1,800, 2,000 rushing yards.
Yes, but those are more unicorns than they are anything, right? Like team building perspective, like it's just not needed to pay these guys anymore. And so I think it's entirely possible that Josh Jacobs does not play. And if that's the case, then Zamir White's ADP is going to start. You're going to start seeing it really, really creep up as this goes on, because I think it's possible that Josh Jacobs comes back week 1, and just says, all right, I'm going to play. But at the same time, because I think he can push this out until what is it? Is it like week 13, I think, or week 12 that he has to come back by to be able to? Is that what it is, or am I thinking of? I think I'm thinking of Jonathan Taylor. I think he has to be back by a certain time to be able to accrue a season. I think it's actual. I think I'm thinking about Josh Jacobs doesn't have to play at all. It's very much. It's like just like Le'Veon Bell when he sat out the entire year. So because he didn't sign it. That's right. I'm thinking of Jonathan Taylor. My bad.
Yeah, and I know they've started to try and change that as well, so that kind of take that leverage away from them. So they more or less like couldn't. There was like they can't do that because they're missing out on a bunch of money too. But yeah, glad you brought up the Zamir White thing. The thing with it, like if you're going 0 RB, like even if we find like Josh Jacobs like says, "Hey, I'm not going to play at all," or now there's talk of Kev, I saw your Chiefs being interested in Josh Jacobs as well as the Broncos as well. So like unless something happens, where either he doesn't play or another team swoops in and, takes over, I don't think Zamir White's ADP is going to, I think you're still going to be able to find him in that 0 RB type of range. Like, I don't think even if he is like the guy, you're going to see his ADP climb into, the third or fourth, maybe like fourth at most, but I don't think he gets higher than that. So that's definitely a name and a situation to keep monitoring. Let's go ahead and jump back into the training camp stuff here for a little bit, then we'll jump back into the questions. Let's keep on the RB talk here. Javonte Williams. Somehow it seems like this dude is not only on track for week 1, but is like looking good. It's the complete opposite of the J.K. Dobbins situation from what we saw last year. Even though it is a multi-ligament injury, going back to what I was saying about whenever we did our early rankings, we both had Breece Hall as like a late RB2. Like there was like some talk that like, hey, he could be okay for this year. Me and you weren't biting. Now it seems like this is going to be a real possibility. This dude is going to be ready for week 1, and he's going to be completely healthy. Well, maybe not completely healthy, but healthy enough that like we're not going to be able to tell much of a difference in how he looks when he's out on the field. You're the Javonte Williams guy. How high do you comfortably feel drafting him at this point? I'll go ahead and pull up his ADP. Obviously, he has been another riser here. Currently, Fantasy Pros has him as RB29. That is definitely going up with an ADP of 75.5. How high is too high for Javonte?
See, I thought the same thing. I thought by now, with all the positive news we've had for the last almost 2 weeks, that he would rise, but it doesn't seem like that. Because I definitely think there are still people who are like, nope, I'm not taking him. I'm out. I'm not messing with them. So like the question I always have is, and the thing, like I did his profile, and the question you have to ask yourself is, if we didn't have this injury, how high would you take him? And I think the question of that would be like probably second round. Like that's probably where he'd be going right now, second, maybe third. So like it is a massive steal, right? Like the injury's already been baked in, right, to it where his ADP currently sits. The thing is, and like this is beyond a J.K. Dobbins, and this is even beyond a Saquon Barkley situation, because like they're talking about him playing in preseason. Like we're not even talking about just being ready for week 1. Like they're saying he's going to play in the preseason, which thankfully I hope that they don't. I don't think he's supposed to play this weekend, which would be stupid because they're playing Arizona Cardinals, and there's these reports out there that field is a disaster again. Like they have to figure something out, like the Super Bowl and how all that disaster it was, whatever. But like, there's no reason he's play. But like, it sounds like he is 100% ready to go. Like I'm not even considering. Like he is 100% playing for week 1. There's not even he might play. He is 100% playing in week 1, barring a setback. Like everything we've heard, if they're even considering the notion of him playing in the preseason, like a lot of these guys that are healthy don't even play in the preseason. And I think it would actually be good for him to get out there in a preseason action, limited reps, just to kind of get back out there, get the flow of the game again, get back out there, get some hits and everything else. But I mean, he's been doing this. I mean, the fact that he was even back at OTAs was absolutely wild to me. Like nobody thought he was going to even be that close. And like he out of nowhere, he's at OTAs. There all these reports that he looked fantastic. He's cutting. He's doing everything that you're looking for. And so the argument, the pushback is always on certain things. But the more I've thought about, like people will bring up, like, okay, look what happened to Saquon. But we have to remember, like Saquon, in the first 4 games of that season, he had two 20-point fantasy performances in those weeks. He looked good, and then he stepped on somebody, rolled his ankle, and then ended up for the rest of the year he just wasn't any good. So we don't really know on that one. This isn't a J.K. Dobbins situation at all. And so if he continues to go in there, like I have no problem taking him in the 4th round or the 5th round, like none whatsoever, because I think the upside is there. And we've looked at all the Sean Payton offenses, and he produces routinely RB1 after RB1 after RB1. And I love Javonte, even if he's a slow going in the first couple of weeks, which mixing in with Samaje P. Ryan, from weeks 4th on, like this guy can be an absolute league winner. And so I have no problem. His ADP is being baked in. I have to remember, like Saquon, whenever he got hurt, he was still being drafted in like the third, like it was like the 3rd round, 4th round, I think is right around where he was the year coming back from the ACL. You're getting Javonte in the 7th. Like I'll take that all day.
Yeah, I went over to Underdog where there's a little bit of cash on the table. His ADP is basically the same over there at 79.6, but he is RB25. So positionally, he's going 4 spots higher, but ADP wise, like he's still in that same ballpark. And that is as of the past week. So this is where he is going currently. I'm actually really surprised to see that. Another piece of training camp news, a guy who's been getting a bunch of buzz, Kenny Gainwell down there for the Eagles. Obviously they brought in Penny, they brought in Swift. It seems like Gainwell has consistently been earning the most early down touches. And I also saw a report where he has been like the guy in the 2-minute drill as well, that basically no other running back has been working in. There have been some reports with DeAndre Swift that they've been, using him as a pass catcher, getting him in space. I don't know what to really expect from that in that offense with Jalen Hurts as the quarterback. And then you also add in, there are 3 guys who are 100% going to be up higher in the pecking order in terms of targets between A.J. Brown, Smitty, and Dallas Goedert. So I don't know how much that's really going to factor in for Swift. But with the reports that we're getting for Kenny Gainwell, is he someone that you would be targeting if you went 0 RB? And I guess he could really fit it. He could fit into any type of build because of how late he's going. I'm not even entirely sure what his ADP is, but he has to be going in the very late rounds. Is that someone that you're interested in? Like I said, specifically for 0 RB, but like I said, he could also fit any type of running back build, draft build as well.
Yeah, because his ADP is RB 61 or 226, so he's going undrafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yes, but I that's going to change, right? Like once some of these reports start coming out, I think he's depending on where he goes. Like if you can still get him on like even like with it rising like 11th, 12th round, maybe 10th round, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to like if he were to skyrocket up and go in like the 7th or 8th, I'd be out because I think there's too much risk. There's still a lot of other options. I mean, we have to remember DeAndre Swift is still there. You have Rashad Penny. I mean, there's way too many other options here. Like it's hard for me to buy in and think that Kenneth Gainwell is going to be the lead back here. Now we did see in the playoffs last year where he started to get more carries and more opportunities. Like all of a sudden in the playoffs, he had the 12 carry game against the Giants, 14 against the 49ers. Now, we have to remember that 49ers game was a lot of that was kind of like the game was over, especially in the second half once all the quarterbacks went out. But I don't think that he is somebody that I would be trusting to be like an every down back, but they've had no problem utilizing him in the passing game. But then you also have DeAndre Swift, who's also more than effective in the passing game as well. I don't buy it. I'm not buying that he's going to be there like he's going to play the Miles Sanders role. Like I just don't buy it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will. This would have been a good Tom Corson question, but who follows the Eagles. But I'm not buying it that this is going to be the case. Like I think this is just going to be a complete committee and one that I don't know if I want really any part of it altogether.
Not necessarily training camp news, but the news is coming down during training camp, and it's definitely going to be affecting drafts. Alvin Kamara coming in with the 3-game suspension. Just checked on Underdog. He is RB29 with an ADP of 88.1, but on Fantasy Pros, which brings in ADP from a bunch of different places, RB20 with an ADP of 63. Like I would think that Javonte Williams would be getting that type of treatment, but it's Kamara here. Where are you comfortable with Kamara? Is that ADP of 63? So I would put him the beginning of the 6th, RB20. Are you down with that? Is that too high? Would you take him higher?
I mean, I think with him, I think there's definite signs that he's starting to slow down and he's starting to fall off a little bit last season. But I don't mind taking him right around where his cost is because the 3 games I think is going to matter some. I think having him right around RB 17, 18, 19, somewhere in that range, like he's no longer a player that I look at as like a top 12. Even if he was, I would be hard pressed probably to get him there, even if he was no suspension and he was going to be ready to play week 1. And so I think he's fine at that cost, but I have a feeling somebody else is going to see the name and take him higher than that in any draft that I'm ever in, and I'm perfectly okay with not drafting Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, it's kind of where his ceiling is there. That's where his ceiling is for me as well. Let's go ahead and jump back into the comment section here. Like I said, if you guys have any questions at all, go ahead and throw it in. Our guy Booty Warrior is back. Good as our favorite name of all time. Lamar or Herbert at the 106 in a super flex.
Ooh.
This is not a decision that I would want to make just once. I'd want to make this twice so I could take both of them. I think if I had to pick, I'm taking Lamar. Just because I feel like with his rushing ability, they're going to be throwing more. I feel like QB1 is within Lamar's range of outcomes. I think Herbert is going to smash this year. I'm really excited for what this offense could potentially be with Kellen Moore and opening up specifically with the deep ball. But I think I want Lamar there just because I think his ceiling is higher with the rushing. Like Herbert's going to have to go out and throw for 4,800, 5,000 yards, which he's done, which is definitely within his range of outcomes, but also be getting 35 plus touchdowns where Lamar can get, we've seen him get a quarter of that or 75% of that, but because he's tacking on 800 rushing yards and another, 6 to 8 touchdowns, could be outperforming him. So I'm going to go Lamar, but I love both of these quarterbacks this year.
Yeah. I think I would lean Lamar too. In my rankings, I currently have it Lamar 5 and Justin Herbert at 7. I have Justin Fields at 4. So I have right now that's kind of, and I have Joe Burrow at 6. Kind of still monitoring that his, I know they said it'll be a couple more weeks, but this is what I'm guessing, that you may not see him play until he has a contract extension, and I think that contract extension is going to come before week 1, because there's a lot to lose here for him. Him already suffering this injury, and I think he probably would be ready to go much sooner, but there's no reason for him to play. And we saw it last year, right? He had the appendectomy last year, and he didn't play the whole preseason and missed training camp, and he was fine. And so I don't think there's a huge rush here for this. And I think I'm fine with it. I've seen some people kind of talk about him and like be somewhat concerned with the injury that he suffered. He dodged a bullet for sure. Looked at the when it first dropped, it looked like he tore his Achilles, but luckily that's not the case. And so yes, that's where I kind of have these guys.
Kish wants to know: do you think the Jerome Ford injury has a significant impact to Chubb's receiving role? Ford has a hamstring? I think he's been called week to week. So I mean, I guess it really depends on how long he's going to be out. But they do have Demetric Felton there, who kind of played that running back wide receiver hybrid role. So it's certainly possible that Felton just steps into that pass catching role while Ford is out. And like we don't really know yet if he's going to be missing time going into the regular season. It's interesting because before the injury happened, the Browns running back coach said that Chubb definitely has he has the receiving skill set. He just didn't get as many opportunities because of Hunt, and they were talking up Jerome Ford in the pass catching role, but now Jerome Ford is out, so you would think it would, but I just don't have. Even if it would increase, like I don't think that Chubb would be like a 70 target kind of running back, right? Like I don't think it's going to like dramatically alter it. I still completely fine. I'm on board with Chubb being a second round pick. I just don't think the injury has that much of an impact as much as I wish it would.
Yeah, I think 70 would be like absolute ceiling, right, for targets. I think it's probably more likely he comes in around 50, 55, maybe 60, right? I think it's a fair range for him for this season, which is why I have him at RB6. So yeah, I don't. There's been a lot of talk about Jerome Ford, and when I did his profile, there was something I looked at. Like Andrew Berry talked about him heading into the training camp and everything else, and said the thing that he was most impressed with was his ability as a receiver as in the receiving game. And so I definitely think there's something there, and I definitely don't think they want to give Nick Chubb like 85% of the opportunities in this backfield. Like I don't think that's going to be the case. So I definitely think there's a role there for Jerome Ford. But I just don't think, even if he were to go down, I don't think that you're ever going to see Nick Chubb see like some ridiculous target share.
Yeah, I wish that weren't the case. But like I said, even with that not impacting it that much, I'm still completely fine with taking Chubb in the second round. AP. My QBs are Dak and Love. I got Njoku's my tight end. I have Zeke on my bench for some reason. You're going to cause Kev to go jump out of a window with having, first of all, just having Zeke on your team at all, but without a team, I think we might see Kevin's head explode here. Should I drop him for a backup tight end, Irv Smith or Okonkwo, or on waivers? You can definitely drop Zeke. There's no reason to hold him. Like even if he were on a team, the dude is dust. but I wouldn't be doing it and going and getting a backup tight end. I think you can also drop Jordan Love as well. At these onesie positions, I'm just not going to have someone on my bench, especially the beginning of the year. If you're getting closer to the playoffs, you're a playoff team, you're starting to get worried. Maybe you have maybe you went late round quarterback and you have, I don't know, like a Kenny Pickett or something. If you, in that case, you want to go get like a backup quarterback or a backup tight end, that's fine. But at the beginning of the season, I want the guys who have a much higher chance of popping off and being league winners. Like that's not going to be Jordan Love. That's not going to be Irv Smith or Okonkwo either. Drop Zeke. Let us know what other players you have at running back and wide receiver still out on waivers, but you don't need to have Zeke. And we're just going to go on to the next thing because Kev's going to get into a 15-minute diatribe about how bad.
I don't have to this year. It's fantastic. I'm like, it's so nice. Like I can just say I love Tony Pollard. I don't have to even worry about the Zeke situation. So it's great.
Walito wants us to rank these wide receivers in order: DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, and Amari Cooper. So I haven't updated my rankings yet, but off the top of my head, I would go Cooper. DJ Moore is going to be last. Metcalf and McLaurin, I could flip flop on. So it's Cooper at the top, DJ Moore at the bottom, and then depending on the day you ask me, I could go back and forth between Metcalf and McLaurin.
I'm going to go Metcalf, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, and then McLaurin. And for the record, I have them ranked. Metcalf's at 16, Moore's at 17, Amari Cooper's at 17, or Moore's at 17, Cooper's at 18, and then Terry McLaurin is at 21. So, I mean, they're all really, really close to each other. Yeah. But that's how I would break them down.
I feel like people were talking about Rachaad White a little bit ago. Nobody's talking about him in Tampa. Thoughts?
Everybody talks about Baker Mayfield last year and like how he targeted his running backs at a 29% rate last year. But like we also forget that who he played with for the first I don't know how many weeks, of the season. Like he wasn't playing with Christian McCaffrey in that offense. But so, like that doesn't matter. I just think that the thing that worries me about Rachaad White, like I think there's a lot of upside there. Because the other running backs that are there, they show no propensity to want to sign anybody else. And so I definitely think this is going to be his shot. But there has been a lot of talk about Keyshawn Vaughn being more involved and being a guy who's maybe utilized more on the earlier downs and the goal line situation there for them. And so that is certainly a situation to monitor. But Rachaad White was not very good last year. He was not efficient whatsoever as a pass catcher. And so there's some concern there. And just where he's being drafted, it's just there's other players that I feel like that I would rather have more. I also just don't really like this Bucs offense at all. I mean, you're talking about Kyle fucking Trask and Baker Mayfield battling it out in camp. Like, holy shit. Like, and that's why like it sucks because like I love Chris Godwin, but I can't mess with Chris Godwin. I can't mess with Mike Evans. Like unless they were to fall to a point where it's just like you can't let them go any further, I just can't do it. And I've tried to get Rachaad White higher in the rankings. I've tried. I cannot do it. I every time I'm like, I can move up ahead of him. No, can't do that. Like when you get to Rachaad White, it's like, who would you rather have? Would you rather have Isaiah Pacheco or Rachaad White?
Pacheco.
James Conner or Rachaad White?
If I had any faith in Conner staying healthy, and I know we shouldn't, be talking about like guys being injury prone because it's more or less a misnomer, like doesn't really exist. But Conner is a dude who's just consistently banged up. If I had any faith that Conner could be healthy for even let's say 14 games, like forget the full 17. If I had any faith, it would be Conner. I think I would lean Rachaad White. That one's close.
And then so
who do you have there?
I would probably go James Conner just 'cause I slightly like that offense a little. I mean, it's tough, but like even more so, like if you look just at the ADP, I mean, Rashad White is going at RB20, right? He's actually coming off the board at RB18 on ESPN, that's around guys like Kenneth Walker, Miles Sanders, Cam Akers, Alexander Madison, Alvin Kamara, J.K. Dobbins. Like, I probably want all of those running backs over Rashad White. You know, like Rashad White needs to be going down in like the DeAndre Swift range, and down there, but he's not. Like Isaiah Pacheco is actually, in terms of ADP, is going 70th overall, RB29. Like there's a big gap between these guys. So I just can't. Like I just think there's way better. Like, and I think what it boils down to when it comes to these running backs, it's like you have to ask yourself, like, is this guy going to burn me? Like, am I going to and I just there's under no really scenario where I feel like Rashad White is going to burn me if I don't have him.
Yeah. I think it's much more likely he burns you if you do.
Yes.
Take him.
And you're just frustrated with them.
Yeah. Judd, need help. Should I trade Ayuk and Njoku for Goddard to secure the Hurts stack? 10-team, 2 flex. My team is Hurts, Hall, Kamara, Swift, Kupp, Wilson, Njoku, Judy, and Ayuk.
No, you're giving up too much in my mind. Like Ayuk and Njoku for Goddard. Like, I think Goddard is good. Don't get me wrong, but like, there's not a huge gap in terms of between the two of them. Like I in my mind, or not enough to be able to also be able to have to give away Brandon Ayuk to be able to make it happen. Like I really really like Brandon Ayuk this year. Had over 1,000 yards last year. I just think it's too much.
Yeah, I think if you want to go after if you want to go after the stack there, I think I'd almost rather like maybe trade Wilson for Devonta Smith and maybe pick up like a little piece there. You know what I mean? Like
AJ Brown.
Like if you could somehow make that swap, Wilson for AJ Brown straight up, or like I don't know what other bench pieces you have there, Judd, to be able to like make that. But I think I'd rather go with that stack because I think that one's going to be much more valuable than getting Hurts with his tight end. Like, it seems like I was trying to go through as much of the training camp stuff as I could to prepare for this. It seems like Goddard is going to be just as involved. It's basically those three as the pass catchers, but you're going to have a much higher ceiling with either of those receivers. So that's the way that I would attack that one, Judd. I wouldn't go because you're taking Ayuk over Goddard, so you shouldn't have to be adding to go and get, like, you should be getting something on top.
Yes,
to be able to do that. So would not make that trade. Don't mind going after the stack. I don't think it's completely necessary in a redraft league. But I would rather do something with, potentially with Wilson there to go and get one of the receivers instead of Goddard. Let's see.
What are your thoughts? I want to ask you this. What are your thoughts about the Chiefs wide receiver situation?
Funny that when I said, "Oh, that was a thing I was about to bring up," because from what it sounds like, it is, obviously we have to keep in mind that, Kadarius Toney has been out since day 2 or 3 of camp. Seems like he is going to be ready for week 1, which is good news, I guess. But the piece of buzz coming out is that Sky Moore has been the most consistent wide receiver in terms of not only running with the ones, but in 2 wide receiver sets. It's been Sky Moore, and then to a lesser degree, it's been Justin Watson there along with him. I am all about the Sky Moore life if his ADP stays around where it's going to be, like all day, absolutely all day. It seems like it's just going to be another year of being the Kelsey show. But if, like I said, if Sky Moore's ADP stays there, I'm all about that. then I think if you're in like a 14-team league, or you just have a couple extra rounds and you're in a deeper draft, I don't think that taking a dart throw on Justin Watson is the worst thing either, because he's definitely been there. He has to be like the longest tenured wide receiver in that room, right? Like I feel like Watson has been kicking around there for a little bit. So I really, really like Sky Moore at his price point. What say you?
This is actually Justin Watson's second year with the Chiefs. Last year was his
What?
first year. Yeah.
Really?
Yep. Yeah.
Why
He
does it
came in
feel
last
like,
year.
dude, it
Uh,
feels like he has been there. That can't be right.
that's right. Yeah, he signed last year. They signed him the year prior, like right at the end of the year, to a futures contract, and then they brought him in.
I am genuinely shocked. I have no idea what it feels like. I feel like I've had Justin Watson chilling on one of my dynasty rosters for a while, and I feel like I wouldn't have done that unless he was on the Chiefs.
Well, you probably did because
What is
before he was on the Bucks, so he would have been there with Tom Brady and everything else. So like, I mean, I guess it makes some sense that you wish that as
that
well. But
is I am on it, like I'm genuinely shocked. Like I thought this would have been like his third, fourth year. That is wow. Okay. Well, never mind.
I so I'm lockstep with the Sky Moore stuff. I think Sky Moore is going to take um, a big step forward this year. I think it's starting to sound like he is going to play the Juju Smith-Schuster slot role, which is where he makes the most sense. There was a lot of time. There was early in camp. It was a lot of Richie James talk. Uh, Justin Ross, the drum beat for Justin Ross continues to go. Like he has looked like it, and like there's this part of me that's like you want to be skeptical because this is an undrafted guy, but then you have to remember the pedigree of who this guy was prior to the injury at Clemson. Like he put up a legitimate, like dominant season his freshman year at Clemson, and then he suffered all these injuries. And like had that not been the case, like had that like I feel pretty confident to say that he probably would have been a first or second round pick of the draft, but all these injuries, changed all that. And like I knew from the day they brought him in, they signed him that they were going to IR him. It's what the Chiefs do. And so, like, I believe I said this last year. Probably go back and look at some shows that we did, and I definitely said that 100% he was going to get IR last year to be able to stockpile him for this year, and that's what they've done. And he has looked really, really good. Like he is a legitimate, like he is not like undrafted talent. Like he should have been a guy that was drafted in the first, second round. And so I definitely think there is a better than 50% chance he is making this roster. And then so I think it comes down to me, it's Sky Moore. And then I just don't know how this is going to shake out because I could see them cutting Justin Watson, but at the same time, I know they like Justin Watson. And but like there's because Rashee Rice, like the Chiefs, I know people want Rashee Rice. Like I like Rashee Rice, but I don't think year one he is going to be a thing. Just because Andy Reid just doesn't like we saw Sky Moore last year. Like they just don't feature rookie wide receivers, and so I just don't think that's going to be the case. And so I would definitely Sky Moore for me is number one, and then past that, like I don't mind taking a shot on Justin Ross. Like as a late round option. We're going to know way more obviously in the coming weeks exactly, but I just don't think he's going to get cut. Like I think he's going to make this roster, and if there was an odd man out, I think it's probably Justin Watson who doesn't make the roster.
So your answer to JJ's question would be Ross.
I think so. Like it's tough, right? But right now, and I think I would. I think I would buy the hype, and I think there's the outside shot that this is all legit, and that he could seize a decent role. Like he learned this offense last year. I mean, he was still there in all the meetings last season. Like just because he was on IR, like he was still able to go through a lot of this stuff. So I do think taking shots on Justin Ross is what I'd want to do. Rashee Rice, I just don't see it. Like just because of we just continue to see it so much. Will Walito. Don't forget about the legend himself. MVS, yes, the wind sprint king is what he did last year. Just runs a lot of just runs down the field in a straight line really fast, and then that's MVS, and MVS is will be gone after this year anyway. So
Anything else you wanna touch on, Kev? I'm looking, trying to look through Twitter to see if there's anything we missed with the preseason games that are that are going on. Looks like Jordan Addison made a ridiculous catch. Looks like Zach Charbonnet was getting some run. We cannot trust Pete Carroll with his injury stuff, right? Like there was, oh my God, the running back who was like continuously underrated for like 2 or 3 years in a row, had the neck injury, had to retire, like I can't remember his name.
Chris Carson.
Yes. Chris Carson, like he was talking about like, oh, like, hey, he's looking better, should be coming back. And like the dude never came back. Zach Charbonnet was out indefinitely with this shoulder injury. He was back the following week. Now he's playing in the preseason. So like Pete Carroll cannot be trusted. But and anything else on your mind? Anything else you want to touch on?
I think the only thing, a couple of things would be, what are your thoughts on one Travis Etienne with Tank Bigsby? Like I'm starting to get a little bit more concerned. Like before, it was like I'm not that concerned with Tank Bigsby. Now I'm starting to get a little concerned. Like the drum beat gets getting louder, and then we have to remember it's Doug Peterson and how he ran the Eagles' backfield, and why we would always get frustrated with Miles Sanders. And it feels like that we could be seeing that type of scenario start to play out here. So I've actually, like, for me, I moved Travis Etienne down my rankings. I originally had him higher. I have now moved Travis Etienne, so he has been a faller for me. I've actually moved him down to 15. And then Brees Hall, I don't know what to do with this situation because I still think they're going to sign Dalvin Cook, right? I think that's coming. I think Dalvin Cook's finally going to realize, like, hey, I'm no one's going to sign me for this crazy contract that I think I'm going to get. I'm just going to have to take whatever I can get. And so that concerns me for Brees Hall. Like, I still think Brees Hall by weeks 5 or 6 would be the starter, but he's certainly going to be having to, handle touches. So I've moved Brees Hall down a little bit, just because I think that is pretty likely going to happen. But I think those two situations, mainly the Travis Etienne one, like, how are you feeling about Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby?
Yeah, I think it is a real concern. At their price, I feel like I'd rather have Tank Bigsby for sure. We also have to remember that once the team started really feeding ETN touches whenever he started to get banged up. So I think that there is some legitimacy to, they also talked about really liking Tank Bigsby as a pass catcher. They said, he wasn't asked to do that a lot at Auburn, but they like what they've seen from him so far. They obviously like how he runs. So I don't think it's necessarily a situation where it's going to be like a 50-50 split, but I think it's going to be enough that I don't want ETN where he's going right now.
That's exactly where I'm at with him. Because I moved Dameon Pierce up to RB14. I'm getting closer and closer. Like, I really like Dameon Pierce. I'm not worried about Dameon Pierce at all. The situation with Devin Singletary, I actually moved Javante up to RB16. So, those are some of the changes. And I know we're going to be doing, I think next week, we're going to do our rankings video, dust that off and get them updated. But I know Cody is super excited. Favorite thing.
Yes. Can't wait. Fucking worst. Got a couple of questions over on Twitch. Jared's rocking with us as always, holding it down for us over there. Any tips or strategies for auction drafts? I wish I did, because auction drafts are by far my favorite way to draft. Like by far the most fun. I've never done a live auction draft. All mine have been, online, and mostly they've been slow. So you have like a 12-hour clock and it like reset and all that stuff. My favorite way. But I still have yet to like nail down how an auction draft should go. Like I know that, you can talk about, not wanting to go over 25% on any player. And, you can look at allocating a certain percentage for like each position group. But like for me to sit here and say like you should do like this, and this, like I can't do it with a good heart, knowing that I'm giving you like any good information. I would say that, like, I'm probably more likely to go with like a studs and duds type of approach. And I will. Here's one thing. Here's a piece of advice I can give you. nominate players early that you don't want that will go for like a bunch of money. So if like there's like say for whatever reason you're out on Cooper Cup this year because of like the injury, throw him out first to try and like get some of the money out of some of the other owners' pockets. Like that is something that I will do regularly. I will always throw out guys who I don't want that I think are going to fetch a bunch of money. And then you can also, try and throw in, let's say there's like a later round guy that you really like that you want to try and slide in. So when everyone's throwing out, the Kelseys and the Ecklers and all those other names, then you kind of just like lob up like a Puka Nakua. And everyone's like, oh, like I don't want it. Like we're talking about Kelce and Eckler here. And you take them for like $1, and you can kind of get some cheap guys that way too. But I wish I had a better answer for you because they are by far my favorite way to draft. But like I'm still trying to figure it out. And like each draft is completely different. So you kind of like, and especially if it's live, I know it's really hard to do this like in time, but kind of just like paying attention to, does it seem like everyone is going heavy after the RBs? Then you can kind of zig and go wide receiver or vice versa, but kind of try and get a feel of how people are spending and how they're prioritizing their money and kind of try and go from there.
I'm not an auction. Keeper league, I'm all about, which I see there's a keeper league question in here. But I am not about the auction draft live. So, but 10-man keeper league, PPR, what shoe should I take? CMC in the first, Kelce in the second, Saquon in the third, or Hurts in the sixth. So we get to keep 2 here. This is tough. I think I would go Kelce and Saquon, or Kelce and CMC, actually. Yeah, I would go, because Kelce's already a value, right? CMC, you're just taking him at cost, which is fine. You don't have wide receivers here, so that's fine. So you're not really worried about that. I know Hurts would be an option, especially in the 6th round, because of where he's being currently drafted, but there's just so many other options. I still don't think that you have to take a quarterback here, and if you can only keep 2. So I think there's a real debate here, especially in a keeper league where we're talking about the next couple of years. We're not just talking about this year. But I still think I would go CMC and Kelce. Like Kelce, the advantage he brings, he's like over 4 fantasy points per game higher than everybody else. Like we've had there's a discussion to be had about like taking Kelce 101. I definitely think he deserves to be in the conversation with these other guys. So I think it's CMC and Kelce. I was kind of thinking Saquon because if you're still going to have your first round pick, like I definitely think that, because that, to me, this year, like I really really want to be in the lottery for Bijan. And so in a keeper league. So I think I don't mind going Kelce and Saquon if you're still going to have your first. And especially, I think the smartest thing to do in a keeper league is to try to, depending on when the deadline is, if it's right before your draft, and if you guys find out what your draft order is before you have to submit your keepers, you're gonna know exactly who's picking in the first, and then do you have a shot at Bijan? Because if you do, I want to be in that lottery. Like I want to be able to try to get Bijan Robinson, because he's somebody that you can keep if you don't have any restrictions, that you can keep for the next 4 or 5 years, right? Where some of these other guys are going to start falling off, and being able to replenish. And I don't think there's a huge gap between CMC and Saquon. So actually, I think I've just done it. Yep, I'm going to go Kelce and Saquon. I know I kind of went back and forth, but I'm going to go Kelce, Saquon, because you're still going to have your first round pick, and you should still be able to either you can redraft CMC, or you could just get Bijan Robinson and be doing backflips. Because if I get Bijan, I'm taking Bijan Robinson 101 in any keeper league, unless something crazy like Justin Jefferson wasn't kept. But that's about it. Like there's like a couple, like handful of players that I would even consider it. Everybody else, it's Bijan Robinson. So I have to put myself in that situation to be able to get him.
Yeah, I think Kelce's the lock, right? And then like I was thinking about Hurts as well, like you said, with the value. But then like you're kind of putting yourself behind the 8 ball, because 10-man, 2 keepers. You're already talking about 20 players off the board, so like you're kind of putting yourself behind there. And then it's I thought about CMC as well. Then I was like, well, then you're kind of putting yourself into a corner, depending on like how early these quarterbacks go off the board, like how early you're going to take your next quarterback. So I'm going to go Kelce and Saquon is my first one, and then I started like him hawing back and forth. So I'm with you. I'm going to go Kelce and Saquon. I already read through some of these names. Doesn't seem like there's like a ton of obvious ones out there to drop Zeke for. Like I'm still dropping Zeke for one of these names. I was hoping there was a guy that I was going to be like, hell, like this guy for sure. Still, I would drop Zeke for any of them, for any of them, honestly. Like I would have said Rondell Moore a couple weeks ago, but it kind of seems like Greg Dortch has been putting himself over Rondell Moore, and it's not necessarily like a really sexy offense that you're super pumped about. Jonathan Mingo, I think, is interesting, but there hasn't been a ton of buzz around any of those pass catchers in Carolina. Just kind of makes you nervous about Bryce, but I definitely think I'd rather have Jaylen Warren over Zeke for sure. If you want to take another running back there, Reed is interesting, but I think that ball is going to get tossed around a little, like spread around a little too much. That you're going to really be putting him in the weekly starting conversation or flex at least. With the way that everything's been panning out there. If like Jacoby Myers were available, doesn't really seem like he is. If these are the names that you're throwing out, but Jacoby Myers would be a name that I would think about. But Jaylen Warren for sure. I think CPAT is semi interesting as well. I don't know if any of those names specifically stand out to you, Kev.
Oh yeah, like I wanted to just answer this in the chat because Jaden Reed is the guy that I would want. Like I think he is locked up the number 2 role, or not the number 2, excuse me, the slot role, the slot wide receiver role in this offense. And so like I really like Jaden Reed. I like him a ton. Like he's not being drafted anywhere by most people. And so I think that he is somebody that could absolutely be an absolute steal. So I love Jaden Reed. I think he's definitely a better wide receiver than Romeo Dobbs is all day. And I have no problem. Like I have taken so much Jaden Reed and Underdog and everywhere else. The other option, I do agree. I think it's him or Jaylen Warren are the 2 guys that I would definitely look to take here among all of these players. Like there's like you have Devontae Parker who's probably going to have some weeks here and there, and guys like that. But like I just don't think there's much upside there. Damien Harris another option, but man, I'm starting to like maybe I should I should like at first when it came to James Cook, I was like, I don't really know if I want to buy into this, but like there's starting to be more and more that like he may be the guy. And we're getting Damien Harris now, like he's getting soft tissue injuries again, just like last year. And so like I think for me it's Jaden Reed and Jaylen Warren. Like I just comes down to like what do you need? Do you need a running back? Go Jaylen Warren. If you don't, go with Jaden Reed.
Where do we have Cam Akers ranked? While Lito thinks he has top 10 RB upside. I haven't updated my ranks yet, Walito, but he's going to be like in that like mid to late RB2 range for me.
Yes, I have him right. I have him at RB 17 currently. It's tough because like once you like, and I get too far into it because I know we're gonna do this video on this, but like there's this pocket of running backs where like I feel like it's more tier, like where I could just he's in the same tier as a lot of these other guys, but like trying to get him above something's like man, like that's why I think tiers are just the way to go. You don't have to worry about trying to hammer out between who do you rather have him higher than, and so he's definitely in that tier of like mid RB2, and I definitely think I could even get him as high as like a high end RB2. Is certainly in the range of possibilities for him because I think there's a lot of scenarios for him. There's not a lot of competition behind him. We know how he finished last year. He's fantastic. The offense should be better this year. So I do like Cam Akers quite a bit. I definitely think he has RB1 upside for sure. And I did see AP. We don't have to. You don't have to bring it up, but I do have Najee. That would lean me more to take Jaden Reed. I don't like handcuffing my running backs. Like I don't. I just think it's bad process. And so if it was when you having Najee, I would just go Jaden Reed.
Still think you could drop Jordan Love as your backup
Yes.
QB and still take Warren as well. That's what I responded in the chat. So like we're not fans of handcuffing our own running back, but still in that scenario with those names out there, I think Warren would be a top 2 to 3 name. Like I said, you could consider Rondell Moore, like Renfro. Like it seems like he's out as that slot receiver with
Yes.
Jacoby Myers kind of taking over Parker's not going to be a thing that you're going to be excited about. Zay Jones, now we have Calvin Ridley to worry about, and the rest of the guys we kind of went over. If Elijah Moore weren't in Cleveland, I would be on DPJ, but kind of seems like Elijah Moore is going to be a thing. You have obviously Njoku, and then you have Amari Cooper there to contend with as well.
And the last thing that I will say too is something that I just thought about is considering it's only August 10th and we still have more month left, I would try to gobble up as many handcuff running backs you can that are sitting out there, because if an injury happens, those guys are going to, one, in your situation you've already drafted, people are just going to be hoarding them, right? And so I would try to get as many of those guys just in case an injury happens, because the season hasn't even started, and Najee Harris could, tear an ACL between now and the start of the season, and he's, so I don't mind it now. Like when the season starts, yes, I'm not as big of a fan of handcuffing my running backs, but right now, considering you still have a month left, like I would want to try to protect myself and not leave myself vulnerable like that. And so, yes, I actually think dropping Jordan Love too for Jaylen Warren, I think right now getting those guys is exactly what I would want to do, because there's a long time. There's enough time here between now and the season starts that something could go awry, and I don't want to be scrambling to try to get these guys off waivers.
Yeah, the other names to throw out, obviously, we talked about Zamir White already. Ty Chandler, I think, is interesting for the Vikings, and Keontae Ingram, especially with Marlon Mack having another Achilles tear, which is just awful.
Yeah, and I think Tajay Spears would be another name to look at in Tennessee, backing up Derrick Henry, especially Derrick Henry's old ass.
Gainwell, we talked about if he's still out there.
Yep. And then you have old Deneric Prince, but he's gonna make the roster. Just you wait and see. He's gonna make the roster. And then Keyshawn Vaughn was the other guy that I kind of talked about. There's been a lot of talk about him, that he's gonna have a much more significant role than people think that he's gonna have. So those are kind of the guys that I'd be looking at. But surely I think Jaylen Warren, sure.
Kyren Williams as well. He's someone I forgot to bring up. He's been getting some buzz as a pass catcher. We know that he can do it from his time at Notre Dame. We didn't see a lot of him last year. He dealt with injuries during training camp, and then as a rookie, it's just really hard to come back from that. But he's been talked about, especially as a pass catcher, and he's been talked about a little bit more in terms of his running ability as well. We've seen Cam Akers just completely go MIA at times, and then want to get traded, and then they cut Darrell Henderson instead of him. Which is still like one of the best storylines from last season. It was just one of the funniest things.
Oh, absolutely. That was wild the way that went last year.
Yeah. Mark, would you be in favor of having Gibbs and Montgomery as your RB1 and flex and starting them both weekly?
Could. I don't love that, just because I think on a week-to-week basis, I think it's going to be a volatile thing to do. There's certainly going to be weeks where they're both, are.
It's going to pay off.
Yes. But I think more often than not, it's not going to pay off. And I just would rather not do that. So for me, I think I would obviously keep Gibbs, and I would probably try to sell David Montgomery, which shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah. That's also a scenario where you can just put both of them on the block and see if there's a Gibbs fanboy who just blows you away with an offer. I think Montgomery is a really nice pick at cost, but I would not want to be starting both. I know there's been a bunch of people trying to compare, because Campbell was in New Orleans at the time, whenever Ingram and Kamara were a thing, and people were trying to compare that situation. That is just such a we don't see two running backs finish as RB1s, let alone I think that year. Both of them were top 6 options. I think something crazy like that. That is such an outlier. That's not something I would want to be chasing. I think there's reason to be excited about both these guys, but maybe we're wrong, but I would not want to be starting both of those running backs on a week-to-week basis.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah, I agree completely, 100%.
Kev, take us home, buddy.
Yeah, it felt good to dust off the mic and well, not the mic. That's been dusted off, but like I it's dusted off the live stream. You know, I love hanging out with everybody, answering these questions, kind of getting us back in the groove because when week one comes, we're doing these on Wednesday nights, whatever. We answer sometimes for 4 hours of questions to answer everybody. And there's been nights we've went until like 1 in the morning before to answer every single one of these questions because that's what we're here for. Tell everybody else. So that is definitely coming once we get to week one. But we still have a lot more content. We're pretty much the goal is to get a video out every single day of the week. And we've so far have hit that, and we're going to continue to do so. Again, if you guys ever have questions, you can always jump into our Discord, absolutely free. The link is in every single one of the videos we do. It's absolutely free. We're going to have a listener league coming up, so if you're not in there, you can jump into the listener league that we're going to have. It's going to be I think it's going to be, we're going to do a super flex, tight end premium. We're going to kind of spice it up a little bit instead of just doing like your standard run of the mill, scoring settings. So it's going to be some fun. I think it's going to be a 12-team league. I just have to finish setting that up, and we'll have that ready to go. So that's also a luxury of being in the Discord. And as the season goes by, pretty much any news that comes out, it gets dropped in there. Questions being asked all the time, especially from old Alexis in there. Asking his dynasty and redraft questions and all that stuff all the time. And then Walito just talking about the Saints for whatever weird reason that he always talks about. But other than that, that's it. And really quickly, thoughts on Burke this year. I liked Burks a lot before they signed DeAndre Hopkins. Now it makes it hard. Like he's going to have to really fall significantly for me to get back on board with that. I don't like DeAndre Hopkins either. Honestly, at ADP, I don't really like this offense at all. This offense scares the shit out of me, and I just think it's going to be really low volume, not a lot to be excited about. And so I'm kind of out on Burks. And then Mostert, I think he's fine. I think him, Jeff Wilson, but I think Devin Achane really seems like he could be the guy here in this backfield. A lot of hype. People are starting to compare him to Chris Johnson and stuff like that, which it's not really the same. Chris Johnson was a bigger player than what he was, but he's certainly going to be involved.
Did we do a sleepers video yet, Kev? Is that something we did yet?
We did, but we probably need to update it. Training camp changes a lot in terms of sleepers because of just everything that starts to come out. We start to learn more. But yeah, maybe I'll put that on the agenda for next week to kind of dust that back off and get back into it and really kind of start to hone in on some of the top sleeper options.
Yeah, I don't have any off the top of my head, AP, but we'll definitely get an updated version of that out. We'll make sure we do that shortly.
Yeah, and Walito, no, it's never Michael Thomas season. The dude is cooked. All right, it is Chris Olave season. Okay, I don't really know what we're talking about there, but anyways, I digress. I appreciate everybody rocking with us. We'll be back again, I believe, next week. We're gonna, we're just going live now every single week again. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes. But like I said, drop your questions anytime. We'll answer them always. I sometimes I noticed today that I feel like of all the YouTube channels, I feel like we answer like the most in depth because I'll write out paragraphs to people back instead of just like 1-word answers or emojis. I have to just like give them full responses. So I don't know if people really want that, but I just write out entire paragraphs at times. So, anyways, we'll see you guys soon. We'll see you guys. We'll have another video dropping tomorrow. We'll be back again next week. Let's get it. Let's win some championships this year, boys and girls. We will see you on the next one.